stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Trish.
Mrs. Brew?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mr. Menghini?
Here.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Pop?
Here.
We're going to move on to the approval of the agenda. Under appointments and presentation, A is going to be the first reading ordinance of 434, and we're going to add B. We have Lita Strobe here, we got Stephen, Scott, and Mike here to talk tonight. Do I have a motion with that change?
I'll make a motion we approve the agenda as amended. Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menghini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes, regular meeting of June 3rd, 2019, special meeting of June 4th, 2019. Is there any questions on the minutes? If not, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of June 3rd, 2019, and special meeting of June 4th, 2019.
Support.
Mr. Menghini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
We'll move on to the approval of manifest 2019-13. Scott, do you have any questions?
Nothing for tonight.
Brett?
I have none for tonight.
Lee?
I got a couple here. On the page 1, first section of music in the park, see we paid off the first people there, Kruzinski. How are we doing on that fund rate? Did we get enough from local donations to support it?
Yes,
We did, okay, that's good.
that's self-supporting, and we definitely appreciate our sponsors for their generous support.
Okay. And on the same page, card concepts, merchants, charge card fees. How much did we collect on that, Mary? We got charged, I see $674.78, and now we've upped our charge a little bit. How are we breaking even, or are we making a buck?
No, I don't think we're making a buck. I'll give you an updated sheet on that. I've got a spreadsheet on that. I've been tracking it by the months.
Okay. I think I had one more item here. No, that's it.
No question.
Jeremy? I have a couple. On page 1 of 9, towards the bottom, P. Tinney Bows, and it says meter rentals. There's quite a few of them for $150. What's that, Mary?
That's our Pitney Bowes, our postage meter. It's
Oh.
$150 a quarter, and the guy contacted us and said it looked like something happened on their end. We weren't getting quarterly invoices, and we looked back, and that was, the last time we had paid them was through March of 17.
That's why there were so many of
Yeah.
them. All right, and then on page 2 of 9, there's a few here, like for Chrysler World, John's Auto Works and that. I'm assuming that's, for the cop car. Is the insurance taking care of that?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't think those were insurance. I think most of that was...
Or just maintenance claims.
That was maintenance? Okay.
Yeah, just
that's all.
maintenance.
That's it. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion we approve manifest 2019-13 in the amount of $329,806.15. Support.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menghini?
Yes.
Anyone wishing to address the council on an agenda item shall do so now at the podium. State your name and address for the record. If you and them want to talk, they can talk now, right? Because that's an agenda item.
Yeah, unless you want to open it up for them during that time.
Okay.
You can do that.
We can open it up when we get to it. You can, do you want me to wait, or you wanna? You can come up now, or I can just open it up when we get to it to vote on it. Okay. All right, appointments and presentations. First reading ordinance 434, an ordinance to amend section 7 of ordinance 371. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. This particular issue was raised at the last council meeting. The current refuse ordinance is ordinance number 371, which regulates the collection of garbage and rubbish. Solid waste is broken up into two separate definitions, refuse and rubbish. And refuse is your typical household garbage, your kitchen waste, that type of garbage that goes into the garbage truck, and it's part of your weekly pickup. Rubbish is the other odds and ends that come out of your garage or comes out of a project at the house, and it does not go into the garbage truck. What we've done over the years is that we have had a dumpster available for this type of, for rubbish. And same as this ordinance regulates the compost site, has language in the ordinance for the compost site. What came up at the last meeting was that there was always a policy for the city that this was, whether it's a dumpster or the compost site, those facilities were available for the residents to use, not commercial. For the most part, we've always had our commercial businesses have, for the most part, well, it's 99.9% have accepted that policy and have, when we talk to them, they have opted for other disposal. They can work through their, with the contract with the residents or their, in their business cycle to dispose of whether it's the brush, tree trimming, grass clippings, or in a construction project. But we've had, as of late, an argument or disagreement, and so we looked at the ordinance, and it does not specifically state the residential versus the commercial. Staff was asked to evaluate the ordinance and come up with some language that would codify that issue, which we present tonight. Now, as far as the city's ordinances and the readings, a traditional charter, and I've gone through this before in other ordinances, a traditional charter would stipulate that we have a first reading, a second reading, a public hearing, and then we have the enactment of the ordinance. Our charter does not have that process. In fact, the only thing in our charter, the only language in our charter stipulates how we post it after it's been approved. So from a functional standpoint, it's worked for us. We've used a we've followed a first and second reading, public hearings on ordinances that are new or that have some element of maybe some controversial potential, some questions, and then we've also gone and enacted amendments that are just really straightforward and housekeeping. I'll call it housekeeping in general. So we've utilized it both ways. In this particular case, we definitely wanted to go through a first, second reading and a public hearing so that we give plenty of opportunity for comment. So the first reading is basically just to get this out to the public so that they know that we're reviewing this ordinance and this amendment recommendation. So if council has any questions, we will have a second reading at our next council meeting and a public hearing 2 weeks after that, so that would be the second meeting in July. If everything goes on schedule, it would be, the public hearing would be July 15th. We typically would have the ordinance enactment on the schedule or on the agenda the same night we have the public hearing. So we roughly have 30 days to go through readings.
Do you want to vote on the first reading, or?
We don't need to vote on it,
Okay.
we can just move forward, first and second readings. I can take comments, obviously tonight it's new to the public, so we'll probably have very few comments. Council probably has some comments, maybe some questions. At the next meeting, hopefully we have some questions, comments, maybe from the public, just under the reading. It'll follow the same format here, but then at the public hearing is where we really can zero in on those comments. And maybe we have recommendations from council and the public at the second reading that we can and go over and enact at the regular meeting.
On paragraph B there, city will provide a location compost site. Brush deposited at this designated location shall not be larger than 2 inches. Didn't they used to have a sign out there that said 4-inch brush?
We did have 4-inch brush. 4-inch brush, we're recommending that we drop it from 4 inches to 2 inches, mainly because 4 inches is still a pretty hefty branch. And when we're chipping that up, it's really, we had a length requirement that we had, a 4-foot length, but that was when we were doing curbside. So we've eliminated the length component, and we want you to cut up those larger branches and burn them.
Well,
4 inches is a good burning size.
most of the stuff out there right now is a lot more than 2 inches.
Yeah, we're getting,
I still say we should get a
dumpings.
camera out there.
and it costs us, and the township, because the township pays half the cost. I mean, it costs us quite a bit of money to deal with the brush. The brush is really a hard one.
I was out there the other day and dropped some 2-inch stuff off, and there are some awful chunks out there.
Yeah.
And that's gonna cost extra money to get rid of it.
It is, and we're having a hard time finding a contractor to come in and chip it. If you notice, that's all from last year too.
Oh,
So
yeah, that's-
we couldn't find somebody to come in and chip it.
Can we remove that dumpster until we get this straightened out?
We can do whatever council pleasure. Does
I
that,
would say that would be my recommendation. Let's cut off the use of that dumpster to all until this resolution is taken care of.
so for the next month?
Yeah.
Well, I would think it'd be pretty much done now, the rush to drop stuff off down there after spring cleaning. Cut it off at the end of the month?
We'll put it back in, because we usually leave it there all summer.
The enactment would be the 15th, that's when we'll have the public hearing. So maybe you want to just let people know the next couple weeks, come July 1st, we'll have it out, and then we'll bring it back after the 15th, after we make a decision.
Yeah.
That gives people a week or so to, if they've been dragging their feet, or, maybe they can.
Are there any additional fees to bring in or take out?
No, it's, unless it's not full.
So we can just leave it there.
We could leave it there. I mean, if it's not full, then they'll charge us for the haul fee. We usually don't wait until it's full, and then,
Right. So we could just leave it there if it's not full.
how about that? If it fills, we remove it, we won't bring it back until after the 15th.
Yeah?
That way we
Yeah.
won't get charged for a half load or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'll tell David, we'll instruct David.
That would be my recommendation.
Everybody else all right with that? Yeah. Any other questions?
I just gotta find a couple typographical things here I'll give to Tricia at the end so she can make corrections.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to B. Stephen from Leader Stroke. You're up.
Okay, hello. My name is Steven, working for Destroy at the hydropower plant. And I'm glad to be here tonight because I don't have any requests for any change order. So, I wanted to be here. No, I came here on the last meeting 2 weeks ago, And just before I start, I just wanted to say that I'm right now with Scott Kabudi and Mike Young working for HDMS, so it's our local contractor here in US for this work. And when I came 2 weeks ago, I said that I will bring a couple pictures just that you guys have a picture in your mind or in your head about what was the project. So all those pictures are done on unit number 1, the one that we work right now on it. Unit number 2 was complete before Christmas. Unit 1 is the one which is in really bad condition, and for that reason I wanted to show you a couple items that maybe they're going to be hard to figure out exactly where they are because the pictures were taken from pretty close, so you can see the defect and the real situation. But I will try to explain, and feel free if you have any question. So first I took the pictures of the dam over there. So on the right side we have the unit number 1, then the generators, unit number 2, and at the end on the left we have unit number 3 and unit number 4. Okay, it's kind of hard to see because of the lights right now, but these are general view taken from the generator side. So all the turbine pit is open. So right now, every place that you can see this bowl shape, we should have a runner on inside of each segment. And what you can see in the center, those are called the dry cells. So inside of them, we have those bearings, oil bearings. And the reason why I precise the dry cells and the bearings is because we are having issues on it. So I would like you to know where we are at when I'm talking about the bearings. We can move to the next picture, Scott. So this is the area on the bottom, the center. This is the area where the old runner was and the new runner is going. So right now it's empty because the runner were already removed. But at least you know where is going to be the runner. And the components around is called the speed ring. So this is where the runner has to be centered inside. So when we are talking about misalignment, it's because if you take the alignment coming from the main generator at the end, which is under us right now, you have to go through all 4 areas, and they are exactly the same. So there are also 3 others behind, and the runner must be aligned with the generator and with all the speed rings, which are the round shape. I guess we can move to the next picture. So I'm showing right now with my finger on the picture. So this little circle in the center, this is the shaft coupling. All those shafts are in place, and those shafts, we don't touch them. So these are called the intermediary shaft. So these stay in place, and all the other components are going to be new or rework. And on the top, where is the finger? It's pretty hard to see from the picture. I'm not sure, Scott, if you could try to zoom a little bit. But we are talking about like a 1/4 inch gap on the top and like 3/4 inch gap on the bottom. And it should be the same, it should be equal everywhere. So we can clearly, not on those pictures, but normally we can clearly see that all the shaft, the 2 shafts, are clearly about a 1/4 inch too high inside of the embedded parts, which are the steerings and the dry cells. So these, it's pretty hard to get them lower because it's always hard to lower the parts because you are facing the concrete. And if you need to go up, then you need to go up everywhere. So it's pretty tricky because we have fixed parts and mobile parts. So we will move to the next one, Scott. Okay, so now it's a little bit better view. So you can maybe see that the shaft is pretty close yet, right? Where is the arrow? So you can see that the shaft is much closer there than on the bottom. So if you can see by eyes, it's already a big problem. We are going to move to the next one. All around the runner, there are also the stay vents and the leakage gates. These are to give to the water the direction that it takes into the runner, and also to control the flow that goes through. So if you want to play with the output of the machine, like the megawatts or production you're doing, you need to play with the opening of the leakage gates. These are just the stay vents, so they are just a little bit before the leakage gates, and you can see the marks where it should be and where it is. And the reason why it's there is because the weld didn't hold in place. So actually, few of them, this one is the worst one, so because I wanted to have a picture that we can clearly see it. But few of them are like 1 inch off, and this is creating a lot of turbulence inside of the turbine while it's in operation. So all of them And I would say 90% of them has to be re-welded in place once the installation is finished. We need to realign them, take the precise measurements between all of them, and re-weld all around. A few of them were tack weld, a few of them were weld, a few of them were not weld. We cannot explain why, but for sure it has to be re-welded in place and fixed.
That would be a full penetration weld, wouldn't it?
That would be what?
Small weld holding those in place.
But you'll put a full penetration weld on there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna move to the this one. So this is again the same different view, same picture. So again, this is the van where it should be. So you can see the angle of 45 degrees where it should be. And now this is the position of the stay van. We're gonna skip that one.
Do we have that on the other units we did?
On the other units, they were not that bad. So a few of them we just retouched them, but they were not like this. Clearly not like this. I would bet that it's not the same crew who did the job on one unit to the other one. At least the welder guy.
You probably had more turbulence.
Both sides of those on unit 2.
They were welded on both sides, right? Yeah, and on these one, only one little patch.
Still one weld on the top curvature there.
Yeah.
And even a lot of the lower ones, as we were stepping on a few of them, you could tell they were already cracked. So it's just a one little stitch weld over the top. And another problem that creates is water can get inside the staving rod and also come through the head cover if it's not sealed off also.
Yeah. When we were taking them apart, because there is also a threaded rod going through, so you can try to squeeze them, but of course you also need the weld for the sealing and also to be stronger. And on a few of them, for sure somebody knew that it was like this because they already tried to put sealing at the end of the threaded rod. So they were sealing stuff, some kind of silicone Loctite product, but it was quite leaky with so many number ones. So by re-welding them all around, we should fix 99% of the leak also at the same time.
Will you do that right on site then?
Yeah, these are to be done on site, yeah. We're gonna move to the next one. I did take a picture of the old runner, and this one is not to compare, or at least it's just to compare the old one with the new one, just for difference. At that time, I guess the scope was just different. These are steel runners. The new one are going to be stainless steel runners. So first, they don't rust, and also they are much stronger resistance to the cavitation and erosion. So that's going to help a lot. And on unit 1, for some reason that we don't know, there were a lot of turbulence. Could be caused by the weak gates that we spoke before, the stay vents, or it could also be caused by the misalignment of the unit. But all the vents, all the blades, and again, Scott, if you would try to zoom on the bottom of the blades in the center, there is quite a huge crack where is the arrow moving right now. And I would say about 1/3 or half of the blades were cracked when we took the old runner.
Is that the one that's out in the parking lot now?
No, the one in the parking lot is the most beautiful one.
Okay, yeah, because I seen that
The
one
others
when
are
I
in
was
the
down
shop.
there last week. And that one had cracks in it.
Yeah, a little one. And this one was one of the worst that you can see the crack. And on the next one that I will show you, you don't see crack because there is no more blade actually.
Yeah, we cut some blades out.
Sorry?
We cut some blades out because.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were removed.
So.
Yeah. So this is one runner and shaft. So right now it's on the flatbed truck. So on the left, this is what a runner should looks like. So this is the part that we removed from the pit that I showed you before. So it's a pre-assembly runner and the shaft in the center. So we're gonna keep those shafts. This is what I mentioned before. These are gonna be inspected and reworked just to make sure they are good. And the runner are gonna be replaced and reinstalled on the shaft. And this is all done in the shop because this is really accurate work. So it's done directly on the lathe machine so we can control all the run out and flatness of the surface. So this kind of equipment, we ship it like this. And it's going to come back with the same shaft rework and new runners on it. We can move to the next one, Scott. So this is to give you an idea what looks like a runner that we cut the blades. So this one should have been exactly the same as the previous pictures that we saw on the truck. But right now, there is no more big rings around because they were all cracked on the edge and also in the center. So to protect the rest of the turbine, what the city did, they just removed those blades, and actually they were not operating anymore with that runner. So the unit is made that you can operate with 2 or 3 of them. So this one was actually not anymore in operation or new purpose. Next picture. Okay, this one is a little bit more technical, but all the runners has a very precise position in the turbine, so it's efficient, and also you have to make sure that the water is always going through all the runner blades and not around the runner. For every single drop of water that goes around, you are losing efficiency because it doesn't go through. And this one on the surface, maybe Scott, you can try to show what is the axial surface, a little bit more on the right. Yeah, this one is the axial one. So on the runner, it's pretty hard to see on the picture, but all this surface is pretty well damaged. So clearly the runner or the complete alignment was moved, or one runner was maybe moving on the shaft, we don't know yet, but all this surface was touching the fixed parts. So every rotation, you were just steel to steel, directly one on the other. So now we're gonna remove the runner by a new one, so it's not a problem. All we need to double check is the reading on the fixed parts to make sure that we did not remove too much material. If we remove only 15-20 thou, it's not a problem, we'll fix it. Hopefully we did not lose like 100 or 200 thou material, which we don't believe is the case. We will go to the next picture. All those measurements that I'm talking about right now are the one that we took this week. I received half of the value on last Friday. A few more came this morning from the guy who took the readings. So this week we're going to be working full time on that to review all the values we have and see if we need to touch something or be out something.
That's your Faro readings.
Yeah, these are the Faro readings. So one specialist guy came to site twice because he needs to have 2 different setups. So all those values are put onto drawings, and later on I'll show you an example of what those values comes to us, and on what we're basing ourselves to confirm if there is a misalignment or not.
Did you say you got some of the readings back?
Yeah, from last Friday and this morning, and we are talking about 200,000 thou off on elevation, which is the worst. We were expecting right and left, as on unit number 2. You can fix it easily in 1 or 2 weeks alignment. Here it's different. The problem is on up and down. So we're going to need to find out which part is the worst, which one is the best, and then you can decide which one to keep in place and which one you have to modify.
How much was it off?
200 thou. So 0.200 of an inch. So earlier I was talking about the bearings in the dry cells. So here I'm taking a picture from the top of the dry cell. So I'm looking down actually. So in every 3 dry cells there is 1 oil bearings, and those bearings are the one that I mentioned 2 weeks ago. Few of them were found. They are all split. So if you want to replace the shaft, you can easily open the top, remove the shaft, and close back the top. And few of them, for some reason that we didn't know, and now we know, they had about 1/8 of an inch shims right on the split. So actually the bearing inside the aviator was not anymore round, but you were having some eggs shape. And we didn't know why, because they also tried to put silicones to prevent the oil leakage. And now we understand because of the misalignment of the elevation, they were probably overheating the bearings. So for solving that problem as a band-aid, you just open the bearing a little bit, you try to keep it sealed, and then you increase your clearance inside. So actually the shaft in operation was able to move like this. And we are talking about 100 thou to 200 thou, which is quite a lot. I also think at the end I'll have a video and I will show you how much we can move the shaft just by using a little crowbar. And the gap in those bearings should be like 5 or 6 thou, which is about 2 hairs thick. So you should not see this by eyes, and you will see on the video directly by eyes. So we'll go to the next picture, Scott. This discussion we had on unit number 2 before. So they align all the bearings. But you can see that there are a lot of stacked shim underneath the bearing housing. So all those plates, they are 1-inch plates. And probably because the bearing pedestal was too low at that time. And instead of being modified or lift and officially fixed, they just stacked a lot of shims underneath. And now they are trying to align and block the bearing in place by holding the shims instead of holding the bearing housing. Because the green parts on the top is the bearing housing. And now we are pushing on the shims. So we're going to need to find a way to propose a mechanical approach to, instead of pushing the shims, to extend the lever on the side and then push directly on the bearing housing. So once the bearing is fixed, it doesn't move anymore. Because like this, there is nothing that can guarantee you that it's not going to move. Someone could come, play with the bolts, or only with the vibration, the bolts could get loose, and the bearing can move like that, right on the top of the shims. So we're going to keep those shims because the problem is not the shims, but the problem is that you have to hold your bearing housing and not the plates underneath. So this one we're going to work on it and get back to you with a mechanical approach or mechanical solution that we should apply. We'll go to the next picture, Scott. Those surface, you have it at every entrance of the dry cells. So we are using ropes around to seal the surface between the watering side and the dewatering side. And for sure, this is caused by the miss of the alignment of the units, where the shaft was moving like this all the time. And then you have the ropes applying pressure on it all the time. So you can see that the surface right now is waving. It's not so easy to see, but if you put a straight edge on it, you will see that you miss about 100,000 of material on it. So a few of the shaft have one, we can rework them in the shop, and we will do it because we already mounted the shaft on our lathe machine, so it's not an extra work for us. But for the shaft that are on place, we're going to need to study if we really need to remachine them or not. The problem with that won't be the vibration, it won't be anything else, so it's not critical, but it's going to be leakage. You're going to have leakage all the time inside of the turbine cells if those surfaces are too much damaged. So the ropes will try to apply on the surface with constant pressure on it, so you can seal. But right now, if the surface is moving like this, the ropes will certainly sometimes release the pressure from the surface. So you're going to have water drop coming inside of the dry cell all the time, which was the case when the unit 1 is still in operation. We're going to move to the next one, Scott. That's the last one. So there is no video. Do you see one with the video? I don't see the video. I'll try to find the video later, and maybe I can take a minute at the end just to show this video. Now, if you could open the last PDF on the right side, please. And I guess you're going to need to zoom a little bit on it. So this is a sketch of the turbines. You can see that they are 4 area for the runners. This is like a bird view from the top. And so one is showing us how much the alignment is wrong, like upstream, downstream, which is kind of right and left. And the other line on the bottom is the alignment C from the side, so it tells you up and down how much you're off. And I will not go numbers by number because I don't think this is what you want to see and hear. But clearly on the line on the top, you will see that right and left, we are off on some place for 20 thou, 30 thou. This is, according to me, normal. We need to realign that, and that's easy fix. Because this 20 and 30 thou, you have it everywhere in the holes, so you can play with the bolts. And this is quite a standard work. On the bottom, we are talking about the numbers that I mentioned before, about 100 to 200 thou between fixed parts. And we are talking to 3/8 of an inch lower than the generator. 3/8 of an inch is about like this, just that you have an idea in your head. So we are like this, lower than the generator, which is the biggest issue. And
this line right here, correct?
yeah, this line, yeah, exactly. And if you look, as I said, I won't go each number, but there are numbers with diameters, there are numbers with axis, and few of them are minus 370, some are minus 200, some are minus 100. So if they will all be minus 300, you can just lower everything. But the problem now is that some of them are not too bad, and some of them are really bad. And they are all fixed and embedded parts. So now you need to find a way to remachine or compensate the mistake, because you can figure that if you have two diameter like this, and they are supposed to be aligned, so the runner should fit perfectly in the center. But right now the holes are misaligned like that. So if you want to fit the runner going through all of them, you need to reduce the diameter of the runner. But now we're talking about reducing the diameter for 600 thou if you are misaligned for 300 thou. And that's going to give you a lot of room around the runner, and then immediately you lose the efficiency. So it's going to be a work to determine with that kind of head, with this pressure of water, how much are we going to lose. This is really hard to say, but we could make some guess on our side. Or we'll have to look the approach to see what we can do with the fixed parts, to instead of playing with the new runners and the new components, what we could do with the fixed components to do not have this problem coming back every time.
So before though it ran through them,
Say that again, please.
you're saying the parts are moved now, you know, like this?
Yeah,
Wasn't there a part going through them though?
the runners,
Yeah, the part that you're saying that it's gotta go through the hole?
the runner has to go through the holes.
Did we take a runner out of there?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
How did it get in there if it was so far off?
Yeah, we're like about 300, and the old runners, they have much bigger clearance around. And this is what we are not doing with the new runner, and this is why we target the highest efficiency, so you need to reduce all the clearances. So the new one are more difficult to install than the old one, because the old one were having spare all around. But also, the same as they did on Unit 2 before, because the runner didn't fit probably, they also moved the bearing. And that would explain why you have bearings on different elevations. So they were fitting the runner inside of the holes. But the most important for the unit is the alignment. So it's better to lose a little bit of efficiency because you reduce all the diameters, so they fit in different holes. But at least it rotates on the same alignment. Because if the alignment is not good, okay, you're going to gain some efficiency for the first 2-3 years, but after 2-3 years, your problem won't be more efficiency. It will be the blade cracking, it will be the shaft cracking, it will be all the other components coming.
Well,
So-
what we already had.
Yeah, exactly. So it could be a reason of that. Because right now, if you shoot the elevation of different bearing, at least the 3 turbine bearings should be on the same elevation. And now they are way off. So probably they miss the alignment of the bearing, or they just played with the bearing on purpose to fit the runner in the hole. So there are two approaches to possibility. On old units, sometimes you need to play with, but when you are putting new runners, you don't play with that. You bring the alignment perfect, and then you hope you can operate for 35 to 40 years with the same runners. So we're gonna work on that. We're gonna study all the values. We have a meeting tomorrow with the guy who took the reading with the Faro. We're gonna share all opinion around the table, and then we are gonna get back to Mr. Anderson with a mechanical and technical solution to see if we go with the approach of modifying the fixed parts or the new parts.
Don't you also have a somewhat fixed start with the generator?
Yes.
So you can't go too crazy on moving around. I mean, the generator has a,
Yeah, the generator is your start as you
that's your
set.
start, yeah.
Of course, when the generator is completely off, then you have to restart, if I can say like this.
Yeah.
This one is pretty well leveled. All the values, so the one who put the generator level did a very good job.
So we don't have to move the generator this time?
Now what we need to confirm is the generator leveled with the holes? Because when I mean levels, I mean like this. Now we need to make sure he's on the good elevation also. I'm more concerned about the turbine side, not because we supply the turbine, but because these shafts are much shorter. So when the shafts are shorter, you have less clearance to play. But if the problem is only that all the turbine is perfectly aligned and then the generator is a bit lower, the last shaft is about 19 foot long. So this one you can play a little bit with. And when I say with play, we are not playing with limits. We are playing inside of limits. So there are calculations that our engineers can do, and they can confirm, okay, with 19 foot long, you can play with 2 millimeters of elevation, staying inside of the safe specification. But if the safe specification is 2, we will not go down to 3.5. We will try to target 2. And these number, we cannot confirm that today yet. So we need to sit down and see with the guy who took the reading, how exactly he set up the equipment, and then we can confirm those. So I didn't want to take much time, but I wanted you to have some idea and the situation of the components on site. So everything is under control. The job is going good. Actually, the disassembly is finished. There are a couple of components that we need to reinstall in place just for the 1 month storage while we are working on the new runners. And in about 3 weeks to 4 weeks, we are going to be able to be back on site and apply the corrective action. So all we need to do is to show you the actions or proposal, and then we can work together to find out what is the best way, budget-wise and technical-wise, considering both approach for sure. So that was the short presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
But then I already have the agenda. Okay. Would everybody be all right if we moved up? Where did you have?
She's last.
Number 19, and then go down? Can I do that?
I just ask the council.
Okay.
Move it up.
Okay. Does anybody have a problem if I move 19 up first?
No.
Scott, Brett, no? Okay, we're gonna take number 19 and do it before 7.
No, I haven't sit through it
Before 8.
Oh, all right, yes, before 8, I'm sorry. Consideration to release property deed restrictions, Mr. Anderson.
Okay, Ricky, come on up. We got a request actually from Ryan Percheski, who's been working with Victoria on property next to his, over by the low-pressure water tank. And we have a deed restriction on the property, so I gave you all the information in the packet, and I guess it's just have a conversation of where we think we should go with releasing the only one that can release that deed restriction is the city council, so council will have to decide what action it deems necessary or wants to take. But, I mean, if you...
I'm sure, well, if you all have all the information, I'll keep it really quick. So I purchased the property 2 or 3 years ago, fully intending to build on it. I hired an architect, I have plans, I hired a contractor, which didn't work out. I hired a second contractor, which didn't work out. And then fate intervened, and I got the opportunity to purchase a house also in Norway. That was pretty much what I was going to build anyways. And so that's what happened, and that changed my plans. I was no longer going to build, and I wanted to sell the property. Ryan owns the property directly adjacent to the property that I have, and expressed an interest in purchasing the property. However, he already has his primary residence on his piece of property. He wants to purchase the other piece that I own, but doesn't want to have to build another primary residence right next door to where he already lives. So anyway, we're just asking to release that so that I can sell the property. He can buy the property, and somebody will still be paying taxes on the property.
Ryan, do you plan on putting a pole building or something on?
I don't have plans immediately. I can see myself doing that in the future, but I basically don't want the restriction of having to do it within 2 years. I'm not saying I'll never build something on it. Of course I'd love to, I just don't want that. I don't want that restriction over my head.
Okay. Any comments?
Well, the one thing is if we lift the restriction here, what do we do across the street? He has a restriction to build a house in 2 years as well with the same property, just across the way from Ryan's place. That same restriction applies for his property as well.
It does.
So, if we lift this restriction, what do we do with that restriction?
And it was brought to my attention that before I got on council, 4 years ago or whatever, Mr. Joe Tinty tried buying the property that Marcus Babalani bought, and it was turned down by council because they wanted a house to be built on there. That was before I was on council.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up, that at that time, it was decided we didn't wanna have people just expanding yards. We wanted property, houses, to bring more taxes, bring in utilities, not getting somebody a bigger yard. And so we made the decision then we weren't gonna sell to Mr. Tinty just so he could expand his yard. And he had a plan to put a barn on it, I believe. And we wanted Marcus wanted to build a house on it. We felt that was a better choice. And that's the way we wanted the city to go, and that's the way we had discussed.
Well, according to the letter from Mr. Wisen and our assessor, the taxes generated on the 3.25 acres and the 1,200 square foot pole building, if it goes up right away, would be like $1,100 a year, where if that lot was sold or Mrs. Jekyll decides to stay there, you put up a new house, you're losing a little over $4,000 in taxes. House versus the barn. And that's a chunk, but nothing's been selling up there. I don't know. We've got all kinds of property for sale and nothing's selling.
What about, too, even though, Mr. Wiseman said we lose that, that also went off of if they built a $250,000 house on it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so somebody also could buy it.
I think he said $266,000.
Yeah,
house,
over a
someplace.
quarter of,
Yeah, $266,000 house.
right.
That would be-
And somebody could go in there and put in a $120,000 house.
Absolutely.
So that could,
That would change the numbers.
that would change the numbers, so you wouldn't get as much.
Right, right. And again, it's going to be a tough decision either way as far as I'm concerned. But you don't know if somebody else is going to buy it. I mean, how long has that place been
Yeah.
open up there and what have we sold? And we,
Joe LaFave, I think, purchased it around 2000, and
It's been a
kind of
while.
was gonna put a subdivision of sorts up there. and
Yeah,
don't think anybody
I think he
looked
bought
at
it in 2011,
and
something
we
like
gave it an
that.
extension.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the precedent it sets to start waiving restrictions to why we even put them on there, if we're just gonna waive them.
See,
Because this will
that's-
set a precedent that we've waived one, like you said, why, anybody could argue, no, you have to waive mine, you have to waive mine, and we stuck by them before. And I'm concerned about the precedent it sets.
And I have to disagree with you on that one, Jeremy. Each case
It's
is
different.
individual. It's different. Each one, and just because he did it, why can't he do it?
Because
He
the court
also
will,
said that he was gonna put up a bull barn or a barn right away for his horses too. And Mr. Procheski is not sure what he's gonna do.
Right.
You know, he just wants a bigger yard.
I just don't believe in the precedent. What do you think, Counselor?
Well, of course, sometimes these things are what is clear as mud, but that being said, I think the point that brought up, I think it's more of a larger discussion to have, frankly, from the council's perspective, perhaps on a development issue. I've made the comment privately, I don't like it when the government becomes a developer. It creates some issues, and I think, speaking with Mr. Anderson, one of the things that the city has always looked at is if it's going to sell city-owned property or city public-owned property, is to benefit the community, benefit the taxpayers, and benefit the community moving forward with a tax base. And I think that's why the city doesn't sell off its property on a regular basis. In this situation, some years ago, Mr. LaFave came in and offered to stand in the shoes and do the development. These restrictions were put in place by a previous council, and under the terms of that agreement was put in place with Mr. LaFave. Mr. LaFave has had a number of extensions, I think at least 2 to my recollection that I recall. And there's other individuals out there that have similar deed restrictions in place as well. I do think it's a bit of a slippery slope if you're, and it's, to look at it on a case-by-case basis, I think it is a bit dangerous, because we are looking at previous council's decisions and then playing quarterback a little bit and changing them. I think it's difficult, and that's right, so I don't advocate one or the other for it, but certainly if this was lifted in this situation, it occurs to me, and I made a comment, I think maybe City Manager Anderson speaking about it, maybe one of the council members. Across the street, there's an individual that's come before this council before as well in the same subdivision and requested that both an extension and then there's ramifications put in place if it doesn't get built. So other people are having to deal with these exact same issues, even within this residential development. I think it begs the bigger question from the city perspective is if the council or wishes to move forward and treat it as, hey, you buy the property and you're going to build it when you can, and you build it as you please, and you build it pursuant to zoning requirements, kind of take a step back, or they be consistent and follow through with the previous council's requirements and the previous council's conditions of sale.
What if she just sold them one lot because we sold her 2 lots and she was just gonna put a house on them 2 lots? Because she bought 2 lots and she was gonna build a house on that. What about if we just
He's
sold?
gonna purchase both of them.
But I mean, what if we, if,
Currently, Ryan, you have like 1.9 acres? Right. And then, Vicki, you have 3.2 acres. 3.4. When it was originally designed, it was designed around 2 acres a lot, 1.8, something on that order. It would be better in this location if they were about 2.5 acres, minimum 2.5 acre. I mean, it's in a rural well, it's actually an R2 district, which allows the smaller lots, but there's no utilities in the area, so typically that would be a rural residential type zoning district, and that minimum size is a 2.5, because that's what the health department likes to see as a minimum for well and septic. And I gave them a copy of the aerial so that they could see the general layout, with your house plus the lot lines, and that even an extra amount would give you some ability to expand and do, I think, what you'd really like to do in the future, because you're pretty close right now to the lot line.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean...
Yeah, I'm just looking for a little extra elbow room.
Right, so, just to say cut it in half, I'd probably caution and say you probably don't want to do that, just because you'd leave the remaining lot back at that 1.5 acres roughly, or 1.8. But we could have a division there that increases Ryan's lot size and still has a couple acre lot, 2.5 acre lot remaining. My recommendation at this point was, take it under advisement and continue discussion for council, because we are looking to have a real estate professional come on board for the city that could help the council, maybe go through this discussion, from the real estate perspective. And then we also, we have, as was brought up, we have 2 other properties that have deed restrictions that are coming up that we've had to deal with extensions, and we're going to have to talk about, how are we going to address those. So I would think that especially from a precedent standpoint, to kind of avoid that argument, you probably could look at the overall context and set up a policy, moving forward, that I think would, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that would be very helpful. It's thoughtful, anyway.
Well, I would agree. I mean, if the council voted to adopt Ms. Jekyll's request, Dr. Jekyll's request tonight, I think there's some very valid arguments that there'd be a domino effect, and I think just in good faith, I'd have some issues with that. Certainly the much cleaner issue is to just blanket deny it and follow through with what's already been in place. But Councilman Menghini brings up a good point with, we all wish our community was bustling and building houses left and right, but it's not. And folks pay money for the property. The city wants to spur development, but also have an eye towards people's purchasing the property and developing it at their own pace versus a timeline. However, like I said, previous councils have put in place the time frame, so I would caution the council moving forward tonight without having a little further discussion or an opportunity to look deeper into this and lay out some potential scenarios, because I do think it's fraught with some potential landmines if it goes one or the other tonight, other than just a simple denial.
And I don't think it needs to take 6 months to do this. I think 30 days to 60 days, to go through this would probably be enough time to come up with, you know, a reasonable approach. Does that meet, is that okay with your guys' timeline? Like, Brian, is that good?
Yeah, that's what it is, it's fine.
Okay. I mean, that's okay with.
That's fine.
council?
That's fine. So we'll look more into it. and-
Thank you, Dr. Jacob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we gotta make a motion to table that? I don't think there's anything that needs to be, I don't think a motion needs to be made for
Since it's
that.
on the agenda, don't we have to move some way on it? Even if it's just a table or?
Well, it wasn't under approval, it was just consideration.
Yeah, I didn't give a recommendation, I did put it
Right,
under
it was not.
communication, so, I mean, you could table it until for further study, or you could do that.
We'll just,
I
make
would
a motion
feel
to
better.
table it for further discussion.
Postpone.
I'll support.
Postpone, yeah.
But that's for a motion to place this on an August agenda, just so we have a time frame to start. to
Yeah,
finish.
with the postponement, you have to state when, but for August.
What they said.
Mr. Pop.
Yes.
Mrs. Brew.
Yes.
Mr. Kramer.
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Mr. Oja.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go back to Resolution 2019-12, General Utility Service Rate Resolution.
Okay, we have a number of resolutions, we have 4 to be exact, that all fall under the, our budget approval stage, or budget approval process. Last meeting, we held a public hearing to review the budget, and normally we would have the first 2 resolutions, Resolution 2019-12 and 2019-13, which is the general utility and service rate resolution and the pay rate for non-union employees. Those 2 typically would have been brought up and approved at the previous meeting. However, we still had some decisions to be made relative to those 2 items. So we have them all for you tonight. So in order, we have the utility rates under 2019-12, under 2019-13, the pay rate for non-union employees. Under 2018-14 is the General Appropriations Act, which is basically a requirement, legal law requirement for City Council to pass a resolution which spells out the general fund and the major and local street fund budget within that resolution. And then 2018-15, which is your fiscal year 2018 to 2019 operating and capital improvements budget. Couple notes under the general utility and service rate resolution. We dealt with the cable rates
Already this year.
already in the spring, and so there are no increases programmed in this rate resolution. Under the pay rate for non-union employees, the collective bargaining agreement, the non-union employees follow the general collective bargaining agreements for rate increases. There has been a pay freeze for the last 2 years of our agreements. We are in the last 2 years of those agreements, and so the base pay rate for the non-union employees will be the same as for the collective bargaining agreements, which is a 0 increase. So there's a pay freeze. And then under the General Appropriations Act is basically your general fund and your major and local fund.
Any questions?
I'm just happy to see we were able to hold the rates this year.
Yes.
And still have all of our funds come out positive.
Yes.
I'd just like to make a comment. How many meetings did we have? 7, 8?
More than that.
And they were all posted, and there's more people sitting here tonight now than there was the whole total time for the rest. I don't think we had anybody, actually.
Just employees that were requested to come in for their departments.
Yeah. But like Jeremy said, I'm glad we could hold.
Do I have a motion on Resolution 2019-12, General Utility Service Rate Resolution?
I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 2019-12, the General Utility and Service Rate Resolution.
Support.
Mrs. Brew.
Yes.
Mr. Kramer.
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Mr. Oja.
Yes.
Mr. Pop.
Yes.
Do I have a motion on Resolution 2019-13?
Make a motion, we pass 2019-13 pay rate for non-union employees.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes, but abstain from seasonal employment.
Okay. Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. Resolution 2019-14, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 2019-14, General Appropriations Act.
Support.
Is that Pop?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Resolution 2019-15. Do I have a resolution, or a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 2019-15, fiscal year 2018-19, operating and capital improvements budget.
Support.
Mr. Oja? I'm sorry, 2019-20, capital improvements budget. Yes.
Mr. Oja? Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Move on to Resolution 2019-16, transfer of funds from major to local streets.
This is something we discussed at the public hearing. One of the issues we have within the major and local street fund is that the local street fund, where we actually have a majority of our work and a majority of our mileage, actually gets less revenue from our Act 51 revenues than the major. And what the legislature decided a number of years ago is that, recognizing that each community has the same problem in the formula and structurally within its budget, that we're allowed to, the council's allowed to transfer money from the major, up to 50% of the revenue from the major street fund to the local to help offset expense. For 18-19, in the last meeting, we had a presentation on our major and local streets. And the numbers that were put out, and I want to make sure we say those again, because for 18-19, which is the fiscal year that we're ending on June 30th, on the major street fund, we received $396,000. The major street fund expense was $301,500. So the balance is $94,500. On the local street side, our revenue was $240,500. Our local expense was $313,000. That put us in a deficit of $72,500. So what we need to do for 18-19 is transfer $72,500 from the major street fund to the local street fund to balance that account. In 19-20, the major street fund, the estimated revenue will be $341,000, which is less than 18-19, but in 18-19, we had some grant money that offset some of the, that actually added to the revenue. Under the expense component for major, we're looking at $279,600. That's a difference of $61,400 to the good. Under the local street fund, our revenue estimate is $247,000. The estimated expense is $273,500. And so that is a $26,500 deficit right off the bat in our local street fund. So you can see the structural problems we have with our revenue stream coming from the state of Michigan with our expense. That leaves us with a small amount that we can apply towards capital improvements. That's, again, why we struggle so heavily with finding funding for capital capital road work. In that presentation at the last meeting, we gave some numbers. There's 36.85 miles of roads in the city of Norway. Of that, roughly a third, or 11.57 miles, are major, and 2/3, 25.28 miles, are local. The calculation for us to receive funding from the Act 51 fund, which is your fuel tax at the pump, goes to Lansing. Lansing redistributes the money under this Act 51 formula, Public Act 51 of 1951. And the calculation is just the opposite. So the more major street miles you have, the more money you will receive in the funds. Well, we can see where 2/3 of our roads are local, so we get a third of the revenue coming back that we should. So, we went through and evaluated that. That means in 18-19, in this last year, after the transfer, we had roughly $22,000 remaining for any projects in Major Street, and for local street, we basically had $2,500. In 19 and 20, this upcoming budget for Major, we're estimating about $60,000 remaining for projects. In local, we're still estimating like $26,000 available for projects. So,
Did you have the numbers on, like, we looked at a couple different places that need to be fixed? Do you have
Yes.
the numbers on that?
I do have those numbers.
Just so people can kind of see the little bit of money that we're getting and how much it costs to...
Sure. Well, some of the costs that were calculated, the average cost to plow and maintain 1 mile of road is $15,956. That's roughly just shy of $16,000 just to plow and maintain a mile. And the average income per mile is $17,500. So that leaves about roughly $1,500 per mile for any capital projects. The cost to pave 1 mile of asphalt, just the pavement, just 2 lanes at 3 inches thick, is $232,320 in today's dollars. So that's just some basic costs that we go through when we're trying to estimate where we can plan a project. When you look at a couple of roads that we know that we have to address, they're locals, they're like local roads. We have Valley View, which is we estimated that at $400,000 to do Valley View correctly. That's just a crush and shape and pavement. Summit Road, which is $290,000 to finish off Summit, especially the worst end. And Perney Lane, again, the worst part is $312,000. That's roughly $1 million total between those 3 segments.
And how much do we have Norway Hill, up through 16?
We actually qualify under a federal aid grant to do, and we went through this at the last meeting as well. There's a program called the Federal Aid Program where we can receive 80% grant to pave the road. However, in order to qualify, we're in the program with Iron Mountain and Kingsford in the County Road Commission. So there's roughly $350,000 that gets spent between 3 communities every 2 years. So then we get on a schedule, we have to get on a schedule in order to access some of that money. For Main Street, we estimated that job as $187,500. And then there are 2 projects coming out from Lower Pine Creek Road. That's actually on the federal aid as well. That was another $460,000.
That's going up Norway Hill, right?
Yeah, that's going up Norway Hill. So between those 2, so it's cost roughly $500,000 to fix all the way through from basically the railroad grade all the way up past to Perney Lane.
And that's 80% funded.
And that would be 80% funded, so.
And we can't use them on the other roads because they don't
Cannot.
fall in the category Valley View, none of them fall under the category.
Ray, could you, a simple answer would be say, well, just take local streets and make them major streets? Could
can't.
you explain, I know, but
Yeah.
could you explain as to why
So-
we can't?
So what we have to do, we can submit an application for MDOT to consider making a local street into a major street. In order to do that, and I'll use Walnut Street as an example, because we know we have the traffic count. It's a major thoroughfare to the school. That's Walnut Street from US to 4th Avenue. In order for us to have that qualified, we had to do the traffic count study, which we actually did. We got some traffic counts. But it has to meet a structural design, which means width-wise, you have to have 2 unimpeded travel lanes. So if you only have 2 lanes right now, like local streets are designed with just a little more than 2 travel lanes, and you have parking on both sides, you literally have 3 lanes, and, you basically have your travel lane down the middle. In order for Walnut to qualify, we would have had to make the whole street no parking. Then they would have allowed us to qualify. The other alternative is to widen the street, which is a project, and you can widen it like we did on Section Street, where we made parking on one side and no parking on the other. That's one of the reasons that configuration is there. Or you make 4 full lanes, and you make, your 2 parking lanes and your travel lanes. So there's a combination of the traffic count. They'll look at how it's being used and its configuration. Now, what'll come back though is a question that says, well, Valley View's used quite a bit. Summit's used, in terms like a lot. There's a lot of traffic on Perney. Well, Perney is a major street, but Summit and Valley View are 2 examples. They don't meet the standards for the traffic counts. They don't have a connection that qualifies, and they don't have the traffic counts. So there's quite a process in order to get something qualified from local to major.
And that's the point I was trying to make, is sometimes these grants are out there, and people say, well, why did you do this road before you did the other road? Well, simply because the grant tells you what roads you can use the money on. And as you can see, at the end of the year, after we do the plowing, salting, maintenance on the roads, we sure don't, compared to what we need and what we have left, so that's why, the roads look like they do. So we're trying to pick at them a little by little.
Ray, you have that figure, the last 4 years, 6 years, what we've actually spent on new roads or redoing crush and shape?
From 2011, we spent $3.6 million since 2011. And we've actually spent, if you go back to 2004, we added a number of, every year before that, we've had projects. So we'll probably double that number if you go back all the way to the beginning of the 2000s.
To kind of go along with what you said, Candy, with the one I hear about all the time is Strawberry Lake. Why did you pave Strawberry Lake? That was because we had a DNR grant. So the grant would only allow us to pave that section of that road. It wasn't chosen because it's not an ideal road for us to pave. There's lots of other roads that get used more. But the DNR grant we had said we could pave that road. So it's the same thing like you said. The grants tell you what you can do, where you can spend it.
And that's an interesting point, because we have the Strawberry Lake project that's going to start here this week, and we're reconditioning the trail. We've got some structural improvements that are going to be made, most notably on the north side with that retaining wall. We are going to pave and fix up the parking lots, add some lighting. That's all through that DNR grant. That money, it can only be used for Parks and Recreation. It comes from they call it a trust fund, but it's the oil and gas money receipts that the state gets, and they designate it 100% to Parks and Recreation, to the DNR.
Right, and that's a great point, and I'm glad that Mr. Anderson brought that up, because that's another thing, people will come up to me and say, why are you working down at Strawberry Lake when our roads look like they do? So that's another point, the DNR gave us the money to do down there, they don't give us the money to do the roads, they tell us what we can use it on, and like Mr. Anderson said, through that grant, it's for recreation, not for local or major streets.
And the first time you don't put the money where it's supposed to go, you're never gonna get any more.
Well, you'd be forced to repay it. That's the first thing they do.
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a motion on Resolution 2019-16?
I'll make a motion we approve Resolution 2019-16.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
We'll move on to 13, approval of low-income energy assistance program. Mr. Anderson?
Okay, this is a program that we've opted into for the, I don't know, how many years now, about 4 or 5 years. It's something that the legislature, actually, it was Public Act 95 of 2013. And so this particular program, and we get questions on this every year, where you see it on your bill. It's roughly anywhere from 95 cents to $1. Usually it's under $1. This last year, I think it was 93 cents per meter. But what it is a home heating, low-income energy assistance program that's applied to all electric meters in the state of Michigan. If we opt out of the program, which you have a right to do as council, then we cannot follow our normal shut-off procedures from November through April. So councils in the past have opted in, and we take this this charge and we send it directly to the state of Michigan. One advantage, though, for low income is that if you opt in, then our residents, our ratepayers, they are eligible for the low income assistance, the SEER funds and the MEEP funds through the state. Any of the utilities that opt out, those residents are not afforded access to those funds for helping to pay utility bills or get assistance. So it's council's pleasure as to whether you'd like to opt in or opt out. We do need to report this by July 1st.
I believe we've opted in ever since this program started,
We have.
2013.
We have.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion the low-income energy assistance program be approved.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Move on to approval, Sturgeon Falls Hydro FERC licensing compliance.
Yeah, I have a change order from Mead and Hunt for the 18-19 license compliance budget. Estimate an increase above the $31,400 that we budgeted of $3,378, $3,378. And the main reason is that in the last 6 months, they've had to work with the city on a couple of unplanned activities. One is that with the startup of the project on Unit 2, and then with a high water that we've had this spring, we've deviated from our license band. We have a 0.9 foot bandwidth that we can run the river, and we've unfortunately deviated from that. We did have a failure, equipment failure this winter, electrical failure, caused the units to trip off. That was an immediate spike, so there were about 4 events that we had to notify FERC. Mead and Hunt, this Mr. Kuzen, the engineer, does a fantastic job working with us and his relationship with FERC, where we notify them, he puts the documentation together, helps us do that, and works with Tim to get the documentation put together, and Lisa, and we have a very good record with FERC where they accept our deviation report. The other is that in this past year, we were asked if we were willing to submit a license extension. For us, it'll be 5 years. It's not a major extension, but there is a little bit of work that, for us to put in for that. We're actually partnering with Crystal Falls, and We Energies was the major partner at first, and they've since had to back out because they've had some issues at one of the facilities and working with the agency on, slowing down the process. So they ended up backing out, but we're still with Crystal Falls and actually the old Niagara plant. So that there's 3 of us in this effort. And it's actually going relatively well. It's much less expensive than when you go on your own to try and do some kind of a license extension amendment. So we're requesting that council approve an amendment to their budget of $3,378. That would bring the total to $34,678.
And without sending this in to them when we go out of our window, if we don't get the approval letter and we have to send the letter in to them to let them know why we went out of the window, they can come back and revoke our license for the dam.
Did we have an original contract with Mead and Hunt and settle on a price before this?
We have an original contract with Mead and Hunt, and we do approve every year the amount that they spend. This is the first year that they've gone over their budgeted amount. Every year before that, they've been well under their budgeted amount.
And this is something that they're really putting their thumb on now, where before it wasn't so technical where when you went out of the window like that, they didn't have, you know what I mean? They kind of overlooked not getting a letter or whatever, but now they're really putting a thumb on it, and for every time that you go out of the window, you do have to, they expect you to have a letter written in, and I do believe you got so many days too.
Yeah, you have.
So that they weren't really doing that for us before.
And because we followed the proper procedure, there will be no penalty,
Correct.
Right.
thanks to Mead and Hunt here and
Yeah.
our people.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I mean, we've had Mead and Hunt handling our compliance all the way through from when I first got here, and we did the actual license agreement. And this is the first year in 19 years that I've been here that they've gone over their budgeted amount. So I do attribute it to these unusual events that happened this spring.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that the amendment to the Mead and Hunt fiscal year 2018-19 license compliant budget be approved for an increase of $3,378, bringing the total to $34,678.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
No.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
No, I'd like to see this out on other bids.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. Move on to the approval sewer department purchase new hose for Vector truck.
The old hose is past its use. It's been Band-Aid, repaired, and we just need to purchase a new hose for the Vector truck. It's a structural hose. It's not just a run-of-the-mill type of hose setup. And because the price is over $1,000, we're bringing it to council. The cost for this hose with the shipping is $1,401. It's from EUMSI.
Do you know where they're based out of, Ray?
I do not, actually.
Any questions?
One thing I'd like to say is, I'd like to see these come from Mr. Triber, not Mr. Trebesi. He's a mechanic, and I think he is a little bit more in the know for the hoses and replacements.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the purchase of new Vector hose be approved for a price not to exceed $1,401 from EU MSI.
Support.
Or is it, which one is it, Ray? Because the proposal says UE and the,
I might have just transposed it.
okay, UE MSI.
Okay.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Move on to Communications Department sweep, system sweep.
Okay, this is something that we talked about and reviewed during the budget hearings. Our system has not gone through what the industry considers they call a sweep of the system, and what that does is that goes and evaluates the hardware in the system, the lines and equipment, looking for system loss, and tightens, where, it's kind of like in your water system where you're looking for leak detection. That's basically what this is on the cable side. We had originally budgeted so much per year for about a 4 to 5 year period, and this past year, because of some of the initiatives we're trying to put forward, and because we've never had the sweep done before, it was recommended that we get a price and contract to do the whole thing at once. It'll be about a 5 to 6 week job. The total price for the sweep is $85,536. We do have $90,000 in the budget to cover this activity. So we're
And this
going,
was something that we should have done a long time ago,
we should have been doing this.
right along.
Yeah.
We've been holding off.
With the changes we made, can the cable fund handle this? I know it was in the
Yes.
budget, but
Yes.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that CCI Systems be approved to perform a system sweep on the city's cable system for a price not to exceed $85,536.
support.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Move on to approval, Electric Department, Norway Hydro Generator Exciter Reconditioning.
So we have a couple of agenda items here that are strictly brought forward because of timing. Now that the generator unit is down with the Unit 1 project, we need to take care of some maintenance activities on the generator and the exciter and the motor associated with the generator. The first is to rebuild the exciter and motor. This is something that we are going to pull the motor and send down to a facility from LNS to LNS facility in Wisconsin. The estimate for this, or the proposal, is for $9,113. Tim did search out for multiple quotes on this, and LNS was the only one to respond.
And then, when I went down there and, seen the stuff going on down there, Tim took me aside and explained to me what was going on and showed me this equipment. And there's definitely, because when it's running, there's a bearing going in it, and this is something that runs continuously.
Yeah.
Down there. So it's crucial that we get it done, and this is, he also explained it's a good time to do it because, with everything being down.
The Unit 2 exciter was done in the past. We're not quite sure exactly how long ago, but Unit 2 doesn't run 100% of the time. Unit 1 runs once we put it in line. It's going to run continuously. You can tell that this unit is the motor and the stator, or the exciter. I mean, it squeals. You almost have to have your earplugs in next to it. So it's going. We need to get this reconditioned.
Any questions? If not, is there a motion?
My only question would be, is this going to have any impact on the other work down there? Any issues?
No.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion that LNS be approved to rebuild the Unit 1 exciter and motor for a price not to exceed $9,113.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Move on to the approval, Sturgeon Falls Hydro Generator number 1 testing and cleaning.
So this work was done on unit number 2. So this is the same type of work we said we were going to inspect and clean generator 1 when it became available, and it's now available. We have actually 3 quotes for this job. L&S is the low responsive quote at $10,675.
Are there any questions?
Same question I had on the last one. Is this going to have any impact on?
I don't like the idea that we keep having to spend the money down there, but we have no choice. Now is the time to do it.
And this is the one where inside the wheel, when we had that trouble where the, what do you call that inside the wheel?
Exciter.
One of the exciters went out, and it's crucial to keep that clean because.
Stator, I'm sorry.
Stator, because, if that breaks bad and you gotta rewind that, you're talking millions of dollars, right?
Yeah, it was a minimum $500,000.
Yeah.
One comment, I guess. Go ahead, Steve.
Are they gonna do that job at the same time the concrete work, or I just want to make sure it's not gonna come at the same time power alignments, we have to close the generator.
I think that's what Tim's preference is, to come in when you guys are not there.
One comment is, if Mr. Carlson could look at the contract with L&S, just review it.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that L&S Electric be approved to perform inspection and cleaning on hydro generator unit number 1 for a price not to exceed $10,675.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Okay, and we already did the 19. Anyone wishing to address the council on any item of interest shall do so now at the podium. State your name and address for the records. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person.
I'd like just to show the video that I started before, and I wanted to show you the shaft and weight. Not sure if we could lower the lights a little bit, or... So it's a very quick video, but I'll show it twice. So mostly the observation is right there, where is the arrow. So the guy is priming the shaft right now, you can see the movement. And normally this should be almost zero. So this is the clearance due of the shims that he's pointing right now. So there, they put the shims on the split joint. And because of this big pick, they have to put silicones around to seal. So now actually we're only using the bottom surface of the bearing instead of using the real complete circle. So that's all I
We
want.
shouldn't be able to remove that at all.
No, exactly.
5,000, not.
Who did the work on that last?
That was Kaiser.
So if they wanted to insert all the runners and all the circuits and everything aligned, I guess they didn't have choice to do this, but we don't want to keep the unit like this, so that's all.
Thanks for that video. Thank you.
Yep.
We move on to council comments. Scott?
I just have one. I've had a couple complaints out there by the public for excessive speed and carelessness on UTVs and four-wheelers and dirt bikes on our city streets. It was years ago, the council had approved that we can use these vehicles, types of vehicles on our roads. And if these kids don't start obeying the laws, I hate to see these get stripped from us. That's all.
I have none.
Lee?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Okay, I just have a comment, and maybe Mary and Ray can help me here. I've got quite a few complaints on the water use this month. I did call Lisa today. it was like a 35-day cycle this time, which is quite a bit longer, which Lisa explained to me it was done because, of course, we were off on Memorial Day. The bills weren't due till the 27th, and we do not read the meters till after the bills are due. So, Ray and Mary, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we had quite a few phone calls today and late last week, but that was the main reason we saw, we didn't see, I mean, huge elevations in the water use, but enough that people were asking, and that was the main reason. We were looking at about 35-day billing cycle.
Yeah, and me and Mary looked it over, and that's almost about 7 days more than usual.
Yeah, we usually try to stay in that 28 to 30-day range. But as you stated, with us being closed on Monday, bills weren't due until Tuesday, so they actually didn't even start reading until I think it was the 29th.
Right, and then I think Lisa said the previous month that they were read on the 28th, or, yeah, or even the 25th, that's right.
26th, I think they started.
So that added quite a few days to the billing cycle.
And the other thing that we would point out to people is if you have one of the old meters where it just bills thousands, you don't get billed for that 1,000 until it actually rolls over on the meter. So if you use 900 gallons, you get billed for 0 because it didn't roll that 1,000 over. The new meters, the AMI meters, they bill by the gallon. So if people want to call and make an appointment to get those new meters in, they'll get billed by the gallon. But we do have to make an appointment with everybody to put one in because they have to go inside the house.
How are we sitting on those meters, Mary?
I mean, electric obviously we've got quite a few installed. Water's been slow, just because the main reason is we have to make an appointment with every person to change them.
Well, and the number of people. I mean, we have a very small crew between water DPW. That's an area that I want to review this summer, on how we can multitask between a couple different departments. So, yeah, I was just going to say that what Mary brought up is that, that because that AMI meter bills you on per gallon, I mean, if that's a concern, if you don't like that irregularity that could happen of being right at the end and not rolling in the 1 month and then having basically an extra 1,000 gallons billed the following month, call, make an appointment, and we can put the AMI meter in, and because it bills by the gallon. So.
And then also, what is this TV program that we're going to be featured on Thursday night?
Oh, Channel 3 out of Escanaba, actually Green Bay, but Escanaba, Channel 3. There's the crew that came up to Norway, and they were doing a segment on their program, and I don't know what the name of the program exactly is called, but it's about Dickinson County, but Norway's going to have a lion's share of the program. It's a good event, good opportunity. We had a couple folks that were able to get onto the program, and the DDA is going to help sponsor that event because it's just going to be good PR for the community, and it's actually going to run down in Fox Valley. So I think it's going to be. We don't have the time yet. We got to call up and find out so we can let everybody know to watch.
Right, maybe we can put it on our TV channel.
Yeah, let everybody know.
Put it on TV and then on Facebook.
Yeah. So Trish, we can get a hold of Molly and find out what time it's actually going to run.
Okay. Mr. Anderson?
I have nothing else to add, I guess.
Mr. Carlson?
No, thank you.
Okay. Girls?
I do have one thing.
Okay.
I just wanted to thank the staff, the council, for this budget process. I think that, it was, we had some difficult issues. We talked about the road issue, this particularly, but we went through the budget with a lot of patience. So I just want to thank everybody from my perspective on working through those issues and, having a real good, clean, solid budget that we're going to be working towards. That's it.
I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes?
Mr. Minigini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. Meeting adjourned.
Great.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.